Hello, everyone, and welcome to Youth Online. I'm Clint Hendry. I'm the Next Gen pastor here at Reverb.Church, and we're so glad you joined us today. Today, we're talking about how law encourages rebellion. Last time, we talked about our sin nature, which is the part of the human being that compels us to commit sin. The Bible teaches us that we have a sin nature. Not only do we commit sin, but it's our nature to do so. Basically, show me a law, a rule, or a regulation, and I'll show you an instinctive desire to break that rule. Paul talked about his sin nature in Romans 7 and how this sin nature encourages rebellion. In Romans 7 and 8, Paul says this, I would not have known what sin was had it not been for the law. For I would have not known what coveting really was had the law not said, thou shalt not covet. But sin, seizing every opportunity afforded by the commandment, produced in me every kind of coveting. For apart from the law, sin was dead. Now let's quickly define coveting, why it's sin, and read that again. Coveting is basically wanting something, needing something, requiring something other than God to be happy, to have joy or to have peace in our life. Basically trusting in that thing for happiness rather than trusting in God as our provider and our sustainer. So again, those words Paul says in Romans 7 says, I would not have known what sin was had it not been for the law. For I wouldn't have known what coveting really was if the law had not said, you shall not covet. But sin, seizing the opportunity afforded by the law, by the commandment, produced in me every kind of coveting. The 10th commandment tells us not to covet, thou shalt not covet. Paul is saying that if it wasn't for the commandment, if it wasn't for the law, that rule, he would not have even known that coveting was a sin in God's eyes or why. But now that he knows, his sin nature causes him to covet. Paul points out that law not only reveals our sin, but actually increases our desire to sin. Again, the law actually increases our desire to sin. If you doubt that, open a package of M&Ms, put them out of reach on a high shelf, and tell a kid not to eat any of them. Then walk away, secretly watch while that kid gets creative, trying to do everything he can to get those M&Ms. We were talking about this in our middle school experience this weekend, and one of our students gave us a great example that said if my mom or dad said, don't look in that drawer, she would be like, what do you mean don't look in the drawer? Now I want to look in the drawer. In fact, that's all I can think about is looking in that drawer. Before I knew not to look in the drawer, I didn't care about the drawer, but now that I know, I can't do anything else until I see what's in that drawer. The law encourages rebellion. It's instinctive for us not to like being told what or what not to do. Why is that? Why do laws, rules, and regulations stir up rebellion? Whether in our actions or our attitudes. Rebellion exists in every human heart. Since the time of Adam and Eve, rebellion comes very naturally. It's also a universal part of the human condition to have authority in our life, whether we like it or not. We will always have rules and laws to follow. Our number one authority is, of course, God, and there will always be other people who are in authority over us. We may not like it, but we will always have authority in our life. So hear this. Rebellion is dangerous, and here's why. Rebellion against proper authority reveals a deeper rejection of God's authority, which brings devastating consequences to our lives. Rebellion is not just an outward behavior, but it's an attitude. It's a problem and a heart issue. It's an attitude problem and a heart issue. So think about this. I know when I was younger, if my mom told me to go clean my room and I was like, fine, I'll go clean my room. My actions were obedient, but my attitude was rebellious, and I got in trouble anyway. The good news is we don't have to live this way. God can heal and change our hearts to be submissive to those authorities and those He's placed in authority over our lives. God has a solution for rebellion. There's a popular scripture in Psalms 37:4 that says, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Delight yourself in the Lord. Instead of delighting yourself in your wants and your desires, delight yourself in God's wants and desires for you. Delight yourself in His great love for you, in His unmeasurable mercy and compassion. Delight yourself in everything the Lord loves and commands. True delight in Him causes us to take our sights off of what we want in order to long for what He desires. Our hearts line up with the heart of God. Our desires become His desires, and rebellion fades away. So today we encourage you to delight yourself in the Lord. Hey, until next time, we're so glad you joined us today. We love you, and we hope you have a fantastic day.